Good morning. Welcome to the morning show here at KGUA in Wallala, 88.3 FM. We're streaming around the world at kgua.org, and we're live on YouTube right now, so you can catch this show anytime by going to KGUA's YouTube channel. Then afterwards, we're going to upload the audio version to SoundCloud and share that as well. I'm Leanne Lindsay, your host today, a filmmaker, video and audio producer, and I have with me today in the studio, waiting to come on after we give you some of our local announcements. We've got Wavelength Farms and Oz Farms here to talk to you about our local community and growing and farming here in this community. And I'll tell you more about one of the one with Wavelength is Kelan Daniel, and with Oz Farms is Amanda Mahaffey, right here beside me. And we'll get to that in just a moment. First, we do have a few announcements to make here about our community, because that's what this show is all about, is community. And this is the North Mendocino Coast, well, the South Mendocino Coast, the Northern Sonoma Coast. I live on the Sonoma Coast. They live on the Mendocino Coast, but my family has property in Mendocino too. So we love this community. And happening today from 4 to 6 p.m., there's a winter holiday celebration, and that's at the Discovery Gallery. It's an artist collective in the Seacliff Center. 4 to 6 p.m., it is getting to be that time of holiday, and this is the mid-month pay and take too, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Wallala Community Center, as well as the clothing part of it is just north of the Chevron station. And then we have coming up in Point Arena tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and the doors open at 9:15. It is X, the life and times of Malcolm X, and that's up in Point Arena. And then there is a concert at the Wallala Arts Center with pianist, composer Larry Vukovich, guitarist Kai Lyons, and bassist Owen Clapp. And that concert will be a tribute to the early instrumental music of the Nat King Cole Trio. I think I'd like to go see that. That's at 4 o'clock Saturday. For more information on that, call 884-1138. We're in the 707 area code, so that's 884-1138. The Lighthouse Lecture Series continues up in Point Arena at the Point Arena Lighthouse at 4 o'clock on Saturday with one of our favorite people here along the coast, and that is Sherry Goforth Eby. She does so much photography of the whales, and she provides that information to Scott and Tree Mercer, who do Mindanao whale and seal study, and they share that information with other organizations all up and down our Pacific coast, and with all different types of organizations. Anyway, she is going to be presenting We Are All Whale Photographers. Techniques for spotting and photographing whales will be shared. And again, that's 4 o'clock at the Point Arena Lighthouse. You can call 882-2809 for more information. Shindig in the Sea Ranch is going again this weekend with live music by Carl Young. And they will have all kinds of food and grilled sandwiches, salads, soups, and more from 5:30 to 8 p.m. in the Sea Ranch on Verdant View. Coming up on Monday, it is Hype, the World of Grunge. We were just talking about Seattle, and this is a documentary on the Seattle scene as it became the focus of merging of punk rock, heavy metal, and innovation, featuring Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden, and many more. And I was on rock radio in Aspen, Colorado in the late 70s, early 80s, and Nirvana, I believe, was just coming into the picture back then. But I used to love to do all kinds of album-oriented rock with that station. And then we have a holiday time at Starcross up there in Annapolis area. Holiday shop is open. The farm stand is open every day with a selection of festive gifts, including natural and fragrant 22-inch holiday wreaths, Sister Julie's extra virgin olive oil, gourmet dried fruit trays, homemade jams, jellies, pickles, herbs, spices, etc. And that's 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Call 886-1919 886-1919 or email community@starcross.org. And that's a good note to kind of end on, talking about a farm stand, is to get into our show today with our two guests, Amanda Mahaffey from Oz Farms and Kelan Daniels from Wavelength Farms. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey. I hear you both just fine.
Great.
All right. Well, it's really great to have you both here. Now, farmers market is over now for at least Gualala. They're not having it up in Point Arena, are they?
We're doing that from June, basically, all the way to the first couple weeks in November.
As soon as the weather turns, we kind of stop showing up. So
yeah, we're going to have some more wet weather again this coming January. And boy, did you guys go through it this last January. We were just talking about that, everybody. Why don't you give Kelan, the audience, an idea of what you guys went through, and then we'll talk to Amanda.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. First off, letting us be on KGUA. This is amazing. And I just want to thank this whole community for showing up for us and letting us be here and continue to grow beautiful food for everyone. This year, honestly, is probably one of the longest years of my entire life. It's felt like 3 or 4 years in one. The cyclone hit January 3rd. Yeah. Basically, everything just got blown to shrapnel and shreds on the farm. All our hoop houses flew away, and everything got battered and damaged. So we've been basically rebuilding the farm for a few months. That was the first year. Second year.
The first year of 2023.
The second year within 2023 was just starting the farm, being able to mend the soil, spread compost, put down cover crop, start setting seedlings in the ground. There's so much startup on each farm and so much startup costs that we don't actually see a return on until months and months later. So farmers really go out on a limb for those first few months and just put all the resources back into the soil, empty their entire bank account back into the land. We're focused on regenerating the fertility. Instead of just being a sustainable farm, we're interested in making the soil 100 times better year after year after year. So I think sustainable is kind of an old school term. We should start really focusing on regenerative and how we can continue to build soil health year after year and not just be complacent with breaking even each year, taking as much as we're giving. And that doesn't seem sustainable. Sustainable doesn't seem very sustainable, to be honest with you.
I saw that in your bio about regenerative, and I wanted you to talk more about that. Why don't you tell everybody where the farm, Wavelength Farms, is located, and approximately how many acres?
We're right on the Alder Creek in Manchester. We're 102 acres. We manage about 35 acres of pasture with our neighbors, Jesse and Katrina. They do a regenerative cattle program, so they bring anywhere from 2 cows to 20, a head of 27 at any given moment, and we continue grazing on a very intense rate. We move them almost every day or every other day. And regenerative farming and land management, especially pasture management, has to do mostly with capturing water. So water is life, and you're trying to turn our pastures into a big, beautiful sponge of life. And so by establishing native and annual perennial grasses, by encouraging methods of holding and retaining water in our soil. And so the reason why the cows are such a beautiful tool is because, one, a lot of their hooves are aerating the soil. So we use a cow called a belted Galloway, which is specifically a Scottish Highlander cow. And it's a small framed cow. So it really fits our landscape well, and so the hooves aerate the soil, but they're also pooping everywhere, and their manure is great. So imagine it's kind of like the slow compost spreading, hooves aerating, and then we do an annual production in a perennial orchard. So we've got about 3 to 4 acres of annual veggies. We're 100% organic. And then we do about an acre of fruit trees, bushes, and shrubs as well. Yeah.
Do you do, okay, I've got a couple of questions here. Do you do the rain capture with anything other than the land? And then number 2, what are you growing during this winter season? And number 3 actually is, are you doing any of the boxes for the local community?
So we actually end up capturing about, I would say, almost 250,000 gallons of water just off of our roof of our garage. We capture it into big water tanks, and then we fill all of our ponds up with it. So we just try to make sure that our ponds and our riparian habitats just stay really vital, throughout the year. And I think inevitably our ponds kind of dictate how much water is in our aquifer, and that's what we can make available in there.
What is an aquifer?
An aquifer is kind of this big, if you were to cup your hands together and imagine the landscape was holding a big bowl of water underneath the earth. An aquifer. So like the whole city of Los Angeles's aquifer is like the LA River, but Manchester and Alder Creek, our whole aquifer is only shared by maybe like 8 to 10 people instead of 3 million people. And so we're really lucky in that sense to be here in Mendocino. We have rivers, beautiful rivers every 20 miles, from the Patao to the Alder to the Albion River to the Big River. It's just incredible.
And our property that's over by Willits, kind of going towards Redwood Valley, we've got so many springs on that property. It's like there's just so much life here in Mendocino County, and so many different pockets that are different weather, climates.
Yeah.
So how far are you, Amanda, and Oz Farm from Wavelength?
Man, I don't know, as the crow flies, maybe like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
No, like probably like 15 minutes down the road. So we're on Mountain View Road.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it's a 241 acre property, and it's mostly forest. And then kind of similarly to Wavelength, we operate on like less than 10 acres for actual food production. And it's largely like an apple and pear orchard. We have like 50 different varieties of heirloom and antique apples. We have a cidery on site, so we make our own cider. We sell them fresh. We made 115 pies. If anyone wants a pie, we still have some pies left over from earlier this fall.
I did see that on your Facebook page.
I've been putting it out there. And then like a mixed veggie and flower production too.
Mixed veggie and flower production.
Yeah. So essentially on like an extra 4 acres, like about 4 to 6 acres, depending on how largely we spread out. We grow your seasonal vegetables, your brassicas, your cabbages, your spinaches, your lettuces, your roots, your onions, your garlic, just all of the delicious, nutritious, high quality, wonderful food that you need to nourish you really deeply. And then we do a lot of flowers too, because Oz becomes a site for about 10 weddings a year, and some really beautiful retreats, yoga retreats and writing retreats, and retreats where they're just screaming in the woods, which is great for them. We love that. And,
a lot of little cabins tucked back there.
Yeah, there are some really fun old cabins around left over from the Back to the Land 60s movement, which is cool. I live in one of them.
Well, I can remember my dad, just grew up on a farm, and farming continued to be so important to him, and he really wanted to establish that. So when you mention apples and all the variety of different orchards, both of you, it just takes me back to that kind of ability to nurture the land and have it produce an abundance. And you've been there for about a year now at Oz.
Yeah, I'm fairly new.
So that might have been a shock in January for you.
We actually showed up in March, like late February, early March.
You missed it.
We missed that. And then it was still raining for a month. And we got pushed back like a month from getting into our fields from when we wanted to. I'm the nonprofit manager, and
you're the grant writer, right?
But our farmers were like roaring to go. It was sort of like we started our starts. They like need to get in the land, but everything is saturated, and we're just trying to find ways to be busy because it was just so wet, and we are like pretty much the Garcia River just floods the land, brings in so much beautiful silt and like so much like soil biology that we do want, but you're like just hoping to get on a high hill and like keep your boots dry,
Yeah, the Garcia. I remember when that flooded, and it washed away a few structures, I believe it was. Did that happen to Wavelength too?
Well, we're kind of up on,
Are you
we're on a higher, we're on the coastal terraces.
Okay.
Where, we're at about 107-foot elevation, which is still not too high up, but we were able to kind of stay above the flood. And so I guess I got a question, Amanda, what's going on at Oz Farm in the winter? Like, what are you guys growing and what's happening over there?
We're just gonna read a lot of books. Yeah, I mean, Oz really does slow down and quiet down. There is this like really beautiful, I moved up here from Southern California where you're growing year round, and it's like heavy, intense production, and farming is a really hard job. It's like 20 jobs in one. And so to have the season help dictate like a natural rest, like Kelan and I were talking about this on the way over here, but we've been like tucking the land in with cover crop for winter, getting it ready to just have a deep rest and be able to restore a lot of the nutrients and like energy we've taken from the land during this production season.
That's a good way to put it.
So now it just gets to rest and relax, and hopefully we'll do the same and prepare really well for next year and find our new crop of apprentices for next year, and maybe host some, warming retreats and build trails on the land and just kind of focus on other projects.
What kind of cover products do you use?
Cover crop. I mostly right now we have like vetch and sweet pea and some different like rye grasses. We wanted like some buckwheat, winter buckwheat, that we definitely use summer buckwheat. I don't even know, kind of just a whole beautiful mix.
You guys?
Legumes.
Oh yeah, exactly. We do something called an organic soil builder, a mix, which is bell beans related to a fava bean, peas, and vetch, and that's kind of the foundation of what we use. And that not only does that help develop the nitrogen cycles, which which vegetables love, they love nitrogen, but it also helps restore the fungal habitats, the nematodes, the protozoas, and there's so much different biology that comes into putting your soil to rest season after season. And I think you can try to keep farming and really keep going, being aggressive with your plantings, but you'll notice that your soil will respond negatively if you keep trying to sow seed all the time without giving it that moment of rest. And so it's just beautiful living up in Mendocino this time of year where there's actual seasons.
And it sounded like you had another question for Amanda. Do you?
Yeah, well, just like what other veggie? Are you guys gonna have apples or
rutabagas?
Growing rutabagas.
There's like some, I mean, essentially how it's been explained to me, which again, like I stand a lot more on the community and education side, and I love the land very much. And so I'm still learning a lot more about the depth of farming, which I'm so glad to be sitting here with Kelan because he has so much of that knowledge. But so what I do know is that like as it gets colder, like everything takes longer to grow because it just doesn't have as long of sun days. And like lettuce would go
5 o'clock, we're dark.
Yeah. So lettuce goes from taking maybe like a month, from seed to plate to being like 3 months. So we have food in the ground so we can sustain ourselves, but it's like way slower going and a lot more just to like keep our fire lit this winter, and our warmth and our bodies, but not so much for giving that to the community. And we're grateful that we spent some time canning and fermenting, and there's a crock I need to empty at home that's stressing me out, and and like grateful for the preparation that this fall autumn time is really about harvesting that summer abundance and like preserving it for the winter ahead.
Speaking of preserving, all the canning that you did, is any of that available to the community, or do you stock that up for yourselves?
In the past, Oz has been that's been a huge part of what Oz Farm does, and we're looking to get back into it next year.
Oh, good.
This year we had a whole new staff because Oz is really interesting in the way that it is this education center. It's sort of like a rotating door. A lot of new folks come in, and it was just a little too much to chew or whatever. One more project.
How long have you been at Wavelength, Kelan?
So I've been at Wavelength since 2017, and it was just an old kind of neglected, rundown hunting ranch that the previous family had kind of mismanaged for decades. And when I got there, it was really in shambles, and the pasture was totally depleted. They had overgrazed it with cows for 30 years, and it really had never been farmed. I think David Bailey and Bill Arana had tried growing peas there back in the 80s. And they
You
brought
mentioned you were
cabbage as
friends
well.
with Billy Arana.
Yeah,
And,
and so that was
and
the
his
one.
dad.
Yeah, and so those guys have given it a go, and they had a good. I think they had a good crop. They grew potatoes and stuff
Yeah.
down there in the valley, and
Potatoes, yeah.
but we've had the same core crew for for almost 5 years.
Wow,
yeah,
now that's a long time.
yeah, and so my
For-
wife Carly,
Yeah.
she's kind of the genius behind the farm, and she's been farming for twice as long as I have. And so Carly's honestly been mentoring me, teaching me, coaching me, as well as Patrick Cordray, who is one of the former farmers at the Oz Farm. And so those guys have kind of been my
Yeah.
educators during this process.
That's
And
synergistic, you know.
I've been cooking in the kitchens professionally for 10, 15 years. And so farming is actually pretty new to me. I've only been farming for 5 years. I feel like I barely scratched the surface, and I'm just really picking up a lot as we're going. And so, our crew, Sophie Earl helped us manage the farm this year. That was amazing.
Sophie Earl.
Yeah.
Who is she?
She's just one of our head farmers and just another local person here, and lives with us here on the farm. And then Austin Carlson, he's our infrastructure master, domestic engineer.
All the different things it takes
Yeah,
to run a farm.
and we've been working with Kelsey LaCroix, who's Billy's partner and fiance, and she's been one of our original crew members, and just a really awesome, positive, hardworking human to have there. And so it's been the five of us. Really, it's the foundational crew. And
now you all live there on the property.
some of us live a little farther away in Gualala and up Mountain View, and so, but most of us do live there. Yeah, and so I think that's kind of been the strong suit of our farm, is just having this really tight core that wants to come back year after year and investing that love and passion back in the land. And ultimately, that's what it takes to stay farming. It's like, if you're not loving what you're doing, your body hurts, and you're getting down in your spirits, and you just got to keep reminding yourself that it's for a greater purpose, which is, one, to feed the community, and also to restore the landscape. Those are kind of our two guiding principles.
Sounds like you really learned that this year too.
Yeah,
that was a life learning experience to go through.
Yeah,
everybody here knows that January was tough for everybody, with the trees falling down everywhere, fences falling down. I just passed, coming north, at the Sea Ranch where they have the horses. I have a horse there, and they were still fixing the fences there. Here it is November, and they're still getting to the fences that fell down. So a lot of trees, a lot of fences, and with all the damage that the winds and the rains caused, was something to get through.
Yeah,
for everybody.
It took us a while to find our rhythm, and that was like the third year. It was just to even find a rhythm. We're like, okay, we just got beat down to the ground. Everything got destroyed. We're like trying to keep our spirits high.
You're like that little shoot coming up through
like,
all the stuff on top of it. Exactly.
We're on the fourth final chapter, which is just putting everything to rest. Which feels so good.
So what will you be doing at Wavelength and Oz Farms this winter?
Opening the book is definitely one of those things.
I'm trying to get my partner to build us a sauna. That would be, come on, Eric, log on, listen to this. No, there's so many infrastructure things to just fix up and clean up. I think one thing I'm really excited about is that the farm is so beautiful. And then one of the best parts of the farm is that it's hugged by this gorgeous forest that's under a conservation easement that's protected for, all time, hopefully. And one of our big goals this winter is to bring folks in for land tending projects to learn more about the forest and build some trails and remove any invasives, and just spend time realizing how lucky we are to have both things,
Slow down.
Yeah.
Connect.
Yeah.
And grow yourself. That's a big part of it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and ultimately, we never stop farming.
No,
you can't really stop farming.
Yeah,
and
it's the planning period.
We kind of have. I know Carly has at least 2 other jobs that she works part-time, and I have two other jobs that work part-time. And so, together we've got 6 jobs, and that's kind of what it takes to support our farming habit at this point.
Farming habit.
And,
Well, it's like I used to-
utopic in that sense. It's like farming's not a money thing. It never will be. I mean, it was in its heyday of cannabis glory, but there's not a lot. It's not trickling over to annual vegetable production in a lot of ways.
We're sitting here looking at the tops of some of the Mendocino County mountains that have vineyards on them now. Now, vineyards, that's a different whole operation unto itself. And water rights is a big issue because of how much water they do take. So your farming is it's almost a completely different type of operation. Yours is self-renewing, regenerative, and
a polyculture,
and you capture your own water, right? Are you doing that at Oz Farms too?
Yeah. So how Oz works is that we are totally off grid, like solar powered, intentional community and farm. And so we pump our own well with solar power. And then if you're watering correctly, then anything that the plant isn't uptaking, it seeps right back into that groundwater, right back into what we're going to be pumping the next week. So with good water management practices in a place like this, you'd hope you would just you should always be able to use that resource in a renewable way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we, same as you guys, we use a small well. It's about 5 gallons a minute. It's not, nothing fancy, but we keep it running, and we try to balance how much we use it, just to make sure that it's constantly full.
And the greatest catchment, the greatest catchment is just healthy soil, because the more that your soil is like covered in vegetation and has deep roots from trees and hedgerows and like just all this unique like polyculture, like different varieties of things doing its work in the land, and the more water can actually be absorbed in the land, which is really the best way to, capture water.
What Kelan was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what you mean by polyculture is that there's a diverse mixture of annual vegetables and there's perennial vegetables, and so the difference would be like in annual vegetables, like a tomato, something that you grow and has a short life, and then it's done at the end of the year and it melts. Something like a perennial is like an apple tree or like a grapevine, or something that's going to be there bearing fruit and holding space in the soil year after year after year. And the reason that the polyculture and having both annual and perennial farming in a single site is so important because shrubs, bushes, and trees that are perennials, they kind of hold the foundation of life in the soil. They hold the soil biodiversity intact. And I think the polyculture and the soil biodiversity play a large role with each other. And, when I talk about nematodes and protozoas, these are all the living organisms that are in our soil, fungus, mycelium, all of these things are things that are actually feeding plants, feeding soil, and are constantly benefiting in each other in a symbiotic.
Billions of friends.
Yeah, billions of friends. Like in a single spoonful of redwood soil, there's over 250,000 different fungus and myceliums that can be tracked.
Wow.
And you can inoculate your compost with spoonfuls of that soil and just like bring all that biology into what you're doing. Because there's such like a misunderstanding of soil, and people like refer to soil as dirt a lot, and there's kind of like a spectrum of like dirt is this idea of this like lifeless thin thing. You think of what's that, the grapes of wrath, like when all of the soil just blew off the Midwest, and that was because there was really poor soil management. And then there's like the dust bowl, and then soil is this like rich, hardy, like just beautiful thing. And I think we forget how much life is in there and how important that life is. And the more healthy that life is, the more healthy that the seed that grows in that, the more healthy of the food it will produce, right? It's like the womb of our food. And we don't think about how important the health is of that womb. If you ask a little kid, how do you grow a plant? They're like, water, sunlight. And we've all been like, yes, that's just it. And I think we forgot for so long that the soil is one of the most important parts of all,
The womb of our food. I love that phrase.
Because back in the day, we would have herds of elk. We'd have packs of wolves. We'd have geese. for miles and miles, blacking out the sun, and so we really decimated a lot of these different species, and they played a massive role in regenerating our landscapes. They would, the geese would spread hundreds of thousands of tons of manure on the soil each year, and the wild herds that would run this land would agitate and fluff up the soil, but they'd also be spreading their manure as well, naturally. And so these are all different biological catastrophic events. And so now it's our job as farmers to figure out how to do these on micro scales to bring the biology back to the soil.
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the passionate voice of Kelan Daniels, who's with Wavelength Farms. And also sitting next to me is Amanda Mahaffey. Did I pronounce that correct?
That's perfect.
And she's with Oz Farms, and you're listening to KGUA in Wallala, 88.3 FM. We're on the southern tip of Mendocino County, right on the northern edge of Sonoma County. And we're talking today about these two farms and our community and what these two young folks go through. They're young to me, and what you endure during the year. We see you at the farmers market, but we also are hearing what your lives are like all throughout the year. And why don't you describe a little bit about being at the farmers market, what that's like, and then I want to actually get into what it's like doing grant writing and some of the special events that Oz Farm holds. So start with that, the farmers market.
And so Wavelength Farm and Oz Farm are kind of like sister and brother farms. Yeah, we have a really tight connection. I think we share resources. Yeah. Same kind of labor and staff. We share help constantly. And so being at the farmers market, all is amazing. We have super positive customers, people that are just willing to show up and just support us week after week. We get
whenever I get to a chance, I'm there.
We get very little flack. People are just super appreciative that we're there.
Yes. And I couldn't imagine a better view from a farmer's
market.
Right.
You got ocean
view. It's pretty amazing.
But I do want to encourage everyone to come on out, come support the Gualala Farmers Market during the season. It's we can't be there without the support of our community and vice versa.
When does it start up again?
It starts up at the end of May.
End of May.
The very last weekend of May.
Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We may start a little early, but you'll see somewhere. Yeah. And if you guys are interested in, the market's over, but if you guys are interested in getting veggies, you can go to wavelengthfarm.com, look up our contact information, and reach out if you guys have any questions about getting vegetables in the off season. That's
what I was wondering about. Are these boxes that you deliver, or they pick up, or what? How do people get the vegetables?
Yeah, we could do on farm pickups.
Nice.
So we'll be able, if you reach out, text us, and we'll coordinate a pickup, and then
local, organic. Where this food is coming from and how it was grown, right?
Yeah.
It's not treated, it's not processed.
Yeah.
It hasn't been sitting for a long time in boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the Gualala market, it's really balanced. It's nice. We've got Nature's Tune, we've got Jesse and Katrina, Wild Heart Beef, we got Mulligan Gardens mushrooms, we've got Farmer Wing, Heron Fox and his almonds. It's all run by Donna Bishop.
Seafood and Wilder Ferments.
So many good things.
Alan and Astrid at the farm.
It's
Mulligan Farm mushrooms.
It's a real all-star line.
Mulligan Farms
or Mulligan Gardens.
Mushrooms. Oh, nice. Well, they're going to be getting a lot of mushrooms right now.
Yeah.
With the rain that's coming in. And today, by the way, our weather report shows that it is going to be raining sometime throughout the day and tomorrow, and then it breaks up on Sunday. So we're getting a little dose of the incoming winter, and I keep hearing, that this is going to be an even wetter winter this year with the what is it called? El Nino. Thank you.
It might be a little warmer than last year.
It's been feeling very warm lately,
but it should be just as wet. We should get another 60 inches.
Get ready.
Magical Mendocino.
Right. So you came on, Amanda, then around March of this year, and your job is to write grants in general, but you said you've got a lot of different things that you do at the farm.
Yeah. I love my role at Oz because in a lot of ways. So we have our farm where it feels like Oz Farm has a lot of things going on. It's like, it's a retreat center, it's a farm,
Right.
it's a cidery, it's also a nonprofit. And that's sort of like the little known fact is that there is a nonprofit called Village Oz. And
Oh, that's why I looked on Instagram and it was called Village
Oz
Farms.
Farms. And it's an homage to the 1960s name of the land. It was called Village Oz.
Okay.
There might be, there might be a correction there somewhere. A lot of folks in this community have been a part of that for a long time, which is really cool. But so essentially the nonprofit goal is like really turning Oz Farm into an education center and really training the next generation of farmers. So one of the greatest projects that we do at Oz is that we bring on 3 to 5 farm apprentices every season from April until November. And today's actually the last day of our farm apprentices for this season. And they live in their own cabins on the land and they like work alongside our farmers every day. They learn the complete in and outs of organic regenerative farming and growing a wide diversity of crops and kind of figuring out how they'll take that out into the world with them. So
how do they find out about participating?
Well, applications are open right now for 2024. We do our best to put it out on the major sites like, you know, gosh, I can't even think, ATRA for sure. Any kind of site where you're looking for farm internships, like hopefully Oz is there, or, you know, really it's word of mouth and friends of friends. And hopefully our apprentices are telling their friends good things about their experience.
And they live there at Oz.
They do
Wow.
for 8 months. Yeah.
What
really
experience.
Beautiful. It's really wonderful. And it's really important for our community too, to have like new, fresh energy and people who are willing to learn. And we do such a diversity of things because we're like teaching folks, you know, and we spend Thursdays having field trips and lectures. And so sometimes a lot of where my grant writing goes is really like funding that apprenticeship program and really
I would imagine,
finding ways to like support these young people in their like future endeavors. And actually,
how old are they in general?
It does depend. Actually, we have a unique group this year, but most part it's like college aged or just after college aged folks,
but maybe older.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've had folks in their 40s and 50s and you know, anyone who wants to learn, like anyone who feels a calling to it and wants to get their foot in the door. It's like you kind of, you know, skin your teeth at an apprenticeship for a while, or, you know, get a position on a farm crew hopefully and just start learning and gathering information because it takes a long time. So I focus a lot on the education side of things, of like making sure they're having a great experience. We do a lot of field trips with the local schools and I'm working to grow that a lot right now. Actually just won a grant for that on Monday. Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Grants are hard to get.
They are hard. They are hard.
They take a long time to fill and then wait to see if you get it.
Yeah. And you kind of have to have a niche and know your story because like we all, it's really supportive. It's a really supportive aspect of, you know, being a nonprofit or even being a farm is that there is grant money out there. And it takes a lot of effort to write grants and to actually learn what they want to hear too.
That too.
So yeah, it's always really encouraging to actually win one and kind of go forward with it. And just continually trying to like upgrade what we're doing on the farm to be better and better for the land too, which is another big aim with grant writing.
Right. Do you ever go to the Community Foundation of Mendocino County? You probably do.
That's who gave us a grant on Monday. Yes. Thank you, dear friend.
Love those people. They're over in Ukiah. There's a couple in Fort Bragg, but the Community Foundation of Mendocino County is amazing how they disperse funds through so many different organizations in Mendocino County.
It's so
even
true.
To me for my film, which we've used up now, but I got
amazing
the grant last year and we went and filmed one of our sessions. We have several more that we did, but they are fantastic the way they support community.
Yeah, that is exactly who we just got a grant through. And Visit Mendocino gave us grant earlier this year.
Right.
For our annual harvest celebration, which is like really an opportunity to open the land to so many folks. It happens every October pretty much. And we just like celebrate together. We just celebrate an amazing season.
That right. Big local celebration of food and people, and I wanted to go
next year.
I was on another film shoot.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But Oz, I mean, you guys create such a nice jumping off point for so many young people in this community because you guys create a central hub, of knowledge, education, but also, having young people that are new to the area kind of discover here and kind of sink into what their passions are.
You help them get settled in the
what
area.
their relationship is to the land, whether they don't ever want to be a farmer for the rest of their life, or whether they're super passionate about growing peaches, or just, it's just, you guys create such a blank canvas for people to kind of delve into whatever passion is
creating the next scientist.
Yeah.
I actually think the funniest thing that's happened with our apprentices this year is that there's one named Jacob who has kind of gone full circle, where he's now learned how to make his own corn syrup.
Wow.
Like we come to the organic farm to eat differently, and he's like, this is just fascinating. He's like, I'm growing sorghum and sugarcane and corn, and I'm like discovering all of these new things. And there is a space to just have passion projects. Like one of our apprentices, Heidi, like built this really beautiful herb garden that had been pretty much ignored for a couple of years. And I don't know, it's just amazing to watch people spread out and just see what they take on and what they fall in love with. And we're so lucky to have so many community members. Like we went to Wavelength as our first field trip, and Katrina and Jesse, who Kelan keeps mentioning, came out and talked to we sat in a circle on the land and just like talked about like the health of this soil and how animals contribute to it. And they know everyone in this community now, I feel like, who are these big players in this giant, beautiful, local, resilient food system. And so they can kind of see what sparks them. Like, am I going to be a beekeeper? Like, do I want to go to a city actually and just like work on food security and access? Or do I want to go back to school? Or I don't know. It's beautiful. It's a really cool part of life, like having an opportunity to learn these human skills that have been lost and taken.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It's a big part of the reason why Wavelength Farm moved to Manchester too, is because of Oz Farm. We were like, all right, there's an amazing young community of talented educators and just creative, cool people here. We're like, this is perfect.
This makes sense.
And there's like a hub here.
Yeah.
And so let's just continue to strengthen it, grow together.
So how long has Oz been there now?
Oz?
I mean, Wavelength.
This is our
Kelan is Wavelength.
Yeah, we're about to start on our 6th full season.
Yeah.
And so that we're just barely scratching the surface.
Babies.
We're baby farm. But we're able to pump out quite a bit of
you
veggies on our
do.
intensive small production, which feels good. So we're discovering our green thumbs.
We're hitting the mocks.
Yeah. We got beautiful black gold soil, and we're discovering that we can actually work it and observe and study the land.
And what's the range of food that you do grow there? Like, give us an idea of all the different varieties.
So we specialize in culinarily focused veggies. So things that just taste especially good.
Veggies, I love this.
And things that taste especially good, super nutrient dense vegetables, but also things that have just like a really kind of whimsical element to them, like growing a purple Napa dragon cabbage, or growing a Chioggia striped pink beet, or growing a super sweet mokum carrot or a Tokyo turnip.
Ooh.
We grow, our soil specializes in the kind of greens, leafy greens year round. We grow really good strawberries right there on the coast. Garlic is phenomenal.
Wow.
And potatoes, you can just dig a hole and drop a potato and walk away. And Manchester soil is like spud growing land.
Spud growing. I love it. I got some of the winter's squash.
Yeah.
Just the smaller ones with the stripes, the yellow. Yeah. And I just sliced them up and baked them with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and a little bit of like garlicky herb blend concoction that I put together, and just baked it for 40 minutes. And you can eat the skin and everything, and just little slices, and just, it's a perfect meal complement.
Delicata was my first like squash love.
Yeah.
I was living on an island in Washington, and we built a fire on the beach, and a farmer brought delicata, and we just had like butter and herbs, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world. There's so many foods that have sort of been like taken from us. You go to the grocery store and there's one variety of everything, and in reality, like the Frontera strawberries are like the ones that are in the supermarket. They're the biggest ones. They're like red, but they're full of water. They don't have a lot of flavor. And then there's
like tomatoes.
Yeah.
The tomatoes that are grown that you get, they're just so much more flavorful.
Oh yeah. Right? And then Wavelength is growing
locally.
like totally different varieties that have like so much more impact in their flavor, you know. And it's like that with every food. There's so much more variety than meets the eye, or than we remember, you know. And the more interesting and diverse things are just like the more lush our life can be. Like food is such a key part of getting together, of like breaking bread, of having conversations with people, of like, you know, showing our love right through our stomachs. So the more variety and the weirder, wilder things you can grow, it just gives life such a new taste, you know.
Unique.
Gardening and farming is hard, you know, and you can't just show up to an old depleted ranch and just think you're going to turn it around in a year and just start growing beautiful stuff right away. No, it's been a big soil building journey for us. So we've had
soil building journey. You guys keep coming up with these amazing phrases.
Well, we started with, you know, with chickens. Then we introduced turkeys. We've had sheep, goats. We've constantly been rotating them, cycling through where we're growing vegetables now. Cows, donkeys. And now we're just down to chickens and cows. But this is how we've made our soil so rich and beautiful. And now year after year, we add a little bit of Marin Headlands oyster shell because it balances the optimization of the soil. And we put a bunch of beautiful kelp meal, the kelp powder from bull kelp, because it has so many micronutrients, but it also is an amazing vector to harness the nutrients from mycelium. So from fungal networks. And so a lot of vegetables really benefit quite heavily off of them, like carrots, for example, benefit from mycelium.
Oh, they do.
But kale doesn't. Certainly kale that benefits from nitrogen and from promotional bacteria.
Speaking of the kelp, I heard or read that red kelp helps if you feed that in as a powder with the feed to cattle. It can help reduce methane.
I saw that recently too.
Right.
Kelp is kind of a miracle.
Miracle.
Farmers and chefs are just kind of beginning to delve into the kelp world.
I'm glad it's coming back along our coast.
Kelp revolution happening. Right?
Yeah, like a sea farming revolution, really. There's like all these there's these sea vegetables that we have never even like thought about eating. Well, not never, but recently. And now folks are like, oh, just like put a line out, grow some kelp, and like diversify your diet and your life in such a cool way. And it's so beneficial in so many ways.
Have you guys thought of doing something like that?
I think about it all the time.
Yeah, well, we'll harvest kelp, you know, I harvested kelp last season with Billy Arana. We made our
very
own fish emulsion, kelp emulsion, which was pretty gnarly. We got a bunch of fish guts and fish organs and fish heads. And Billy made them into a big sloppy mash with ocean water and well water and
delicious
kelp. And for the first like 10 days, it was vile. It was just burning your entire existence. And then after like day 15, day 20, it kind of mellowed out. And it was beautiful. And we took this homemade ocean juice emulsion that we had kind of let ferment, get really, really rich, and then settle. And we spread it on our garlic, and we had the most insane crop of garlic ever. We like just diluted it with water 20-1 and just ran it out in our fields with compost. And I've never seen garlic that massive in my entire life. It just was incredible to see the benefits of the local fertilizers that you can make from just natural elements here.
See how you changed that land when they first got it, or you first got it, and 6 years ago, how you've transformed it and made it regenerative. You know, that's a term I'm glad you brought up, because it's not just sustainable, it's regenerative. So describe that a little bit more to the audience, how you do that and why it's a little bit more important than just being sustainable.
So, sustainable farming, for example, is like you put your fertilizers down, you put your compost down, you work your soil. Say you want to plant tons of lettuces and carrots, they grow beautifully, but then you pull them out, you harvest them, and then your soil is back to where you started. And that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So kind of techniques that we're integrating into the land to make it regenerative are the idea of no-till. So we're instead of using a tractor in all our fields, we're hand tending the soil with a big, large, broad fork, which is like a massive pitchfork, and we're fluffing it by hand. And it's a
Wow.
lot more work, but
It
what it
is.
does is it keeps a lot of the biological life systems in your soil fully intact. You're not ripping all the strands of mycelium apart. You're not destroying and killing all the worms and the little insects that are building your soil.
Right.
It's a fun workout.
And I know Oz Farm is starting to introduce a lot of no-till into their farming, and just
Put
doing,
those young
yeah,
All of our bodies to work.
mulching
Mulch.
is a massive regenerative technique. And so, if you guys just are at home listening right now and you got a big pile of wood chips and you want to start gardening, just spreading your whole property with wood chips will just ultimately capture more water, and we'll condition the soil.
Really?
And we'll hold in moisture.
I could do that on mine.
And we'll just kick off life. It'll just kick off so much biological activity that those wood chips, which are carbon, everything in farming and everything in soil is a lot to do with carbon nitrogen breakdown. So you start with woody materials, that's carbon, and you let it sit and decompose over maybe 6 months in a compost pile. You can let it decompose over 3, 4, 5, 6 years, but that slow breakdown of carbon will eventually turn into bioavailable nitrogen. And so just starting with wood chips is just a great way to integrate, the idea of regenerative into your landscape.
Well, I have about a half an acre, but it's also surrounded by redwoods. So I only get so much sunlight.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an issue at my place. But I want to do water capture.
Yeah.
I have not yet installed water capture on my property.
It's so rewarding.
It really
Yeah.
is.
I also would like to say that a lot of this new phrasing, regenerative, sustainable was the word. My college
Right.
major was environment, economy, development, sustainability. And now that's outdated, but it's now regenerative is the new explanation. But what we're really getting to is that there's traditional ecological knowledge that has been lost for not that long of a time, but there's been this span of time where we farmed the land really differently and we stopped paying attention to the natural relationships and cycles and communities that exist that that people have actually known about for a really long time.
The indigenous here, the Native Americans knew about for a long time.
Truly. I mean, modern day farming in North America started in Oaxaca, Mexico, when folks started being okay, we're collecting all this food, let's start saving the seeds from what was the first corn, beans, and squash. The Teosinte corn had 10 kernels, probably discovered by a little boy, brought home to mom. And they started saving those seeds and mimicked exactly as it was grown in nature, which wasn't neat garden rows. It was a modge podge of beauty, of a prairie ecosystem. I don't know if there's a prairie in Oaxaca, but of just this entropy that is nature. And seeds, what they do, the beautiful thing about seeds is that they travel. So they went to the Pueblos people in New Mexico, up to the indigenous folks of the Great Lakes region, up to, modern Northeast Turtle Island. It became the basis of a lot of indigenous stories about food. And so we're actually working to return back to those deep knowledge ways that exist way before any of us have been here. And hopefully by listening to the land and observing it deeply and truly having right relationship with it, we can really start to grow healthy food that's healthy for everyone, for all of the living things in our community.
You are just getting schooled here on KGUA. Well, we're learning so much from these two young people who both work at Wavelength, and that is Kelan Daniel. And then we also have from Oz Farm, we've got Amanda Mahaffey with us, and hearing about all the different things that each of these farms do right here in our community, especially with the education for it could be young people to older people who want to come and participate. What do you call their not volunteers, apprentices. Thank you. And
you learn by doing.
Learn by doing. And you guys aren't doing any apprentices, are you, at Wavelength?
No, we just got a tight core.
You've got a tight core of people that come back every year, right? Yeah. That's working well-oiled engine there. But you guys have a different kind of business model, which is why you're working like a nonprofit, and then you're taking the grants and helping, these apprentices learn, and just like growing plants, having them, shoot up and learn and grow. So we've got just a few more minutes here on the show. I had another question, and have you given any of your produce? I'm sure you have, like on a regular basis or just every now and then to the local restaurants.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I know Oz Farm has a really cool program with some of the local communities in
Yeah.
the area.
And we donate food every week to Action Network, and then Action Network helps to distribute it
Yes,
out
they
to more and
do.
more families for free, which is really wonderful. And one of the coolest parts about the apprenticeship program is that they get their own mini farms, like these apprentice plots, and then they practice growing and take risks and grow whatever they want. And then that we donate all of that food, and then plus our surplus. But I mean, Kelan too, we do give our food out to lots of wonderful
Coastal
farms.
seniors probably too.
Yeah,
right?
we've donated to coastal seniors in the past. Yeah. And then restaurant wise, like Sea Ranch Lodge, Trinks, The Bird in Point Arena.
The Bird.
The Bird.
I love those guys up there.
Good
Yeah.
Food
Nicole,
Club.
Yeah.
And the Good Food Club is a new
Oh, the
small
Good Food
business
Club.
that just
Good Food
opened.
Club.
Right.
Their whole
They're
thing
the
is
best.
supporting local farmers,
Yes.
feeding just the high quality produce to the local people.
Are they the ones with the window?
Yes.
Opening up the window.
They lived at Oz for a long time. They
And,
moved up here with the current owner and helped start it really in this new iteration. And then now they have the Good Food Club window.
Really exciting.
They send out an email letting you know when the window is going to be open
Yeah.
or whatever. Describe a little bit more about how that works.
So the window, it's open Sunday and Monday for brunch and Tuesdays for dinner. And you could get all their information on their Instagram at the Good Food Club.
I love it. And
Yeah.
how can people get in touch with you both?
Call me, text me.
Like I said,
Social
Oz-
media.
Yeah, like Instagram is at Village Oz Farm. And Kelan.
if you're interested in getting a hold of Wavelength Farm, you can go to wavelengthfarm.com, get all our contact information
Yes.
from there. Either email us or text us. And you can also visit us on our Instagram and kind of follow our day-to-day story. What we're
Kelan
up to.
both post good stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Food that you want to eat. You're like, oh, I didn't even get invited to lunch today. Let's go.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Kelan, thank you so much for bringing Amanda along today and
Oh.
for approaching me about doing this show. I really appreciate it. I'm
Yeah.
glad you did, because I've been wanting to have our local farmers on to talk about what you're doing, how it gets out in the community, how it gets out to all these different groups like Action Network or the Coastal Seniors or their local restaurants, from the lodge all the way up to the Bird. And also there's a stand that's up in Point Arena that's near Lisa's Luscious.
Yeah.
Nature's turn.
Nature's
Yeah,
Turn.
that's another great place
Shout
to
out to
get
them.
produce.
Yes.
I stop and
Yeah.
get some of that stuff
Yeah.
and leave my money.
It's open all the time. I mean, right? It's like
Yeah.
open all week. So whenever you're like, oh, I just need some carrots, like it means so much to go support the local farm and not just go straight to the grocery store, but really thinking a little differently about how you get your food and where it comes from and who you're supporting when you buy it.
And I just
Well
felt like
said.
Amanda and the whole Oz Farm crew is just plays such a big role in the food security that we have here on the coast.
Food security, that's another phrase that it does hit a lot of people where they are insecure.
Yeah.
They
And
don't have enough food.
Just really, really happy to have these guys as neighbors. It's been
Yeah.
beautiful to build a relationship with them.
And I love hearing about everything that you're doing too with kelp, learning, things along the way.
Curiosity is an important aspect.
Yeah, farming is all about just experimenting and making mistakes and like letting your mistakes inform your decisions and what you want to farm year to year. And yeah, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are farming on native Pomo land as well as Oz Farm, and that the knowledge that's possessed in this land has guided all of our decisions moving forward, and just want to honor and respect them to the highest.
Acknowledge that. Yes, that's important. And I remember I was on a film type of a conference with Sundance this last weekend, and everybody that came on acknowledged what land that they were, their location was on. So you came up here from Southern California,
Ahashiman land, yes.
right?
Mhm.
And you came from
Chumash land in Los Angeles.
Okay. And you're getting ready for a wet winter. You're buckling down, you're covering up your crops, you're getting them prepared for next year.
Yeah.
And do you have anything that you will have available to the public during the winter?
Yeah, so probably come mid-December, we're gonna have leafy greens, kales and spinaches and arugulas and salad mix. And so we'll be doing a couple pop-ups in Point Arena. So stay posted. And
Yay.
if you're interested, reach out to us on our website.
Thank you.
We're
That's Wavelength Farms.
at Wavelength. And at Oz, we're about to have a couple of our wreaths from our dried flower collection at Sea Ranch Lodge for the winter season. So go check them out there. And besides that, I think most of our food is going to be going in our bellies. But I do know that we still have a lot of apples going to
Apple
December and
juice,
January.
apple cider.
Apple cider at New Museum Brewery. Another good friend.
And can you believe it? It's already 10 o'clock.
Wow.
The hour just went past so fast. But that is the end of our morning show here at KGUA in Molalla. I'm Leanne Lindsay, your host today. And we've had Amanda Mahaffey with us from Oz Farms and Kelan Daniel from Wavelength Farms. Thank you all for watching on YouTube, and thank you for listening on air at 88.3 FM or online at kgua.org. Again, this is KGUA